There is a rule that has been the law of this land since the autumn before last, and most of the people it was written to protect have never once heard of it in plain words. In short, it says this: if a criminal tricks you into moving your own money to them by bank transfer, your bank has to give that money back. Not might. Not if it feels generous. Has to. There is a ceiling on it, and there are edges to it, and there is one cruel little trap sitting right beside it that I will get to before the end, because knowing your rights is exactly what makes you a target for a second scam. But the heart of it is as I said, and I want it to land properly before we go further, because a great many of you, or your friends, have handed money to a criminal and then sat in silence, ashamed, certain it was gone, and certain it was your own fault. It is very often neither. This is the video where the questions you keep sending me finally get straight answers, one by one, so that if it ever happens to you, you will know within the hour exactly what to do and exactly what you are owed. Before the questions, a word on who this touches, because it is nearly everyone watching. If you have a bank account and you ever move money by transfer to a builder, a family member, a company, then you are inside the group this protection was built for. The scammers are not going after the reckless young. The fraud that this rule covers, the kind where a calm voice on the phone talks you into pressing the buttons yourself, is aimed squarely at people who are careful, polite, and trusting of authority. That is most of my audience, and I say it not to frighten you, but because the single biggest reason people lose this money for good is that they never report it. They are too embarrassed. Embarrassment is the fraudster's best friend, and today we are going to take it away from him. Quickly, who I am. Not a financial advisor, and nothing here is personal advice. I read the actual rules and the regulator's own guidance, and then I explain them the way a neighbor would, plainly. If that helps you, subscribing costs nothing and keeps these coming. Stay to the end for two things: the meanest scam in Britain right now, which targets people who have just been scammed, and the story of Pauline, who nearly said nothing at all. So, the questions as they land in my inbox. The first, and the most common, is the simplest. I was tricked into sending money to a fraudster. Do I actually get it back? The answer for this specific kind of fraud is yes, as a rule, and quickly. The protection covers what the industry calls authorised push payment fraud, which is a clumsy name for a simple, horrible thing. You were deceived into authorising a payment yourself by bank transfer from your account to theirs. Because you pressed the buttons, banks used to shrug and say you authorised it, so it is your problem. For years, that shrug was the standard reply, and it is worth understanding why it was so convenient. A transfer you made yourself looked, on paper, exactly like a transfer you meant to make, and untangling the two took work the bank had little reason to do. Meanwhile, this became the most common kind of fraud in the country, precisely because it turns the victim into the person who moves the money, which let the banks point at you. That excuse is now dead. Under the rules in force since the 7th of October 2 years ago, your bank must reimburse you, and it must do so quickly. The regulator's guidance sets the expectation at 5 working days from your claim. The bank can pause that clock if it genuinely needs more information, up to a longer limit, but the days of waiting months in the cold are meant to be over. So the first answer is the one that matters most. Report it, and the money is very often coming back. The second question is about the size and the clock. How much can I get, and is there a time limit? The ceiling is £85,000 for a single claim. That figure was deliberately lined up with the amount your savings are protected for if a bank itself goes under, and the regulator reckons it covers more than 99 claims in every 100, because most scams, God help us, are for less. If your loss sits under that ceiling, the full amount is in scope. Now the clock, and this is the number to tattoo on the inside of your wrist. 13 months. You have 13 months from the date of the payment to report it and claim. That sounds generous, and it is, until you remember that scam losses are often discovered slowly, a strange gap noticed on a statement, a builder who never came back, and the months can slip. So the rule I will repeat more than once today starts here. Tell your bank straight away. Not after you have gathered your courage for a fortnight, straight away, the moment you realize, by phone and then in writing so there is a record. The third question is the painful one, and it is Pauline's, so let me introduce her. Pauline is 73, widowed, sharp as a tack about most things. One Tuesday, her phone rang, and a courteous young man said he was from her bank's fraud team, that her account had been compromised, and that to keep her savings safe, she needed to move them, right now, into a new, safe account he would set up for her. He knew the name of her branch. He stayed calm while she panicked. He kept her on the line for 40 minutes, and by the end, Pauline had transferred nearly £20,000 to a criminal, believing with all her heart that she was protecting it. There is no safe account. It is one of the commonest scripts in the country, and it works on clever people precisely because it dresses the criminal up as the rescuer. Here is the part that nearly cost Pauline everything. When she realized, her first feeling was not anger, but shame, and when she did ring the bank, a first-line voice hinted that she really ought to have known better, that she had ignored the warnings on the screen, and she came off the phone convinced she had no case. That is the third question in a nutshell. Can the bank refuse because it was, in some sense, my own fault? And here is the honest answer. There is one exception in the rules, called the Consumer Standard of Caution, that lets a bank decline to pay if a customer was grossly negligent, truly reckless, not merely trusting. But it is a high bar. It is on the bank to prove, and being fooled by a convincing professional is not the same as gross negligence. The starting point in law is that you are reimbursed. More than that, the regulator's guidance is blunt that this exception and the small excess a bank may otherwise deduct cannot be applied to a vulnerable customer at all. Pauline, recently bereaved and pressured on the phone for 40 minutes, had a very strong argument to be treated as exactly that. She did not know any of this when she put the phone down. You do now. The fourth question is where I have to be straight with you, because this protection is powerful, but it is not a blanket, and I would be doing you no favors to pretend otherwise. The question is, does my kind of scam count? What is covered is that one specific shape. You were tricked into sending a bank transfer in pounds from one United Kingdom account to another, on or after that October date 2 years ago. Impersonation scams like Pauline's, romance scams, fake invoice scams, scams where you thought you were buying something real, all of those are in, so long as the money went by transfer. What is not covered by this particular rule is worth knowing so you are never caught out. Fraud on your debit or credit card, where a thief takes your details and spends without your say-so, runs on a different set of protections, so do not think silence is your only option there either. Card payments have their own routes back, and a genuine card purchase over a certain amount carries its own separate shield entirely. Money sent abroad, outside the United Kingdom transfer system, sits outside this scheme. Payments made from something that is not a standard bank account, and payments before that October start date, are not caught by it either. If you are ever unsure which box your loss falls into, that is not a reason to stay quiet. It is a reason to report it anyway, and let the bank, and if needed, the ombudsman, sort the category out. The wrong move is always silence. The fifth question closes the loop I opened at the start, and it holds the small surprises buried in the fine print. What if I lost more than the 85,000 ceiling, or the bank simply digs in and refuses? Then your next stop is the Financial Ombudsman Service, and I want you to hear how good that news is. It is free. It is independent of your bank. It looks at each case on its own merits, and it can order a payout well above the reimbursement ceiling into the hundreds of thousands. So a loss above the cap is not a loss abandoned. It is a loss that takes one more step to recover. and 2 details from the fine print that reward the careful reader. That optional deduction some banks apply, £100 off a claim, is barred entirely for vulnerable customers, as I said. And the whole scheme is under formal review this very year, with the regulator due to consult on the ceiling and the rules in December, which is all the more reason to understand your rights while they stand at their strongest. There is even a quiet piece of proof it works. An independent evaluation this summer found the protection cut this kind of fraud loss by around a fifth in its first year, and lifted the share of stolen money returned to victims from just over half to nearly 2/3. The rule is not a promise on paper. It is already putting money back into real accounts. Let me draw all 5 answers together with a picture, because I think it is the truest way to hold this. This protection is a safety net strung beneath a rope most of us never knew we were walking. It does not stop the fraudster pushing you. Nothing on paper can do that. What it does is catch you before you hit the ground, up to a certain height, that £85,000, and for more than 99 of us in 100, that net reaches. There is one torn corner in it, the gross negligence exception, and a fraudster's lawyer would love you to believe you fell straight through it. But that corner is small. The bank must prove you landed there, and for anyone who counts as vulnerable, the net has no hole at all. The point of a net is that you can be afraid of the fall and still be safe. You do not have to be brave to be caught. You just have to shout so that someone knows you fell. Now, the meanest trick in Britain, the one I promised, and it makes me genuinely angry. The moment word spreads that banks are refunding scam victims, a new kind of criminal appears, and this one hunts people who have just been robbed. They call or they email, claiming to be from your bank's recovery team, from the ombudsman, from a fund set up to get victims their money back. They have often bought lists of people already defrauded, so they know your name and your loss, which makes them horribly convincing. And they offer to recover your money for a fee, or they need your bank details to process the refund, or they ask you to move your money one more time to somewhere safe. It is the same crime, wearing the costume of the rescue. So burn this in. The real reimbursement never costs you a fee, ever. Nobody genuine asks for an upfront payment to return your own money. Your real bank does not need new card details to refund you. It already has your account. And the real ombudsman is free and never cold calls you demanding money to speed things along. If a rescuer phones you out of the blue after a scam, the rescuer is the second thief. Hang up and go to them yourself on a number you find independently. So here is the whole thing folded into what to actually do, and it is the refrain I promise to repeat, because it is the difference between getting your money and losing it. If you are scammed, tell your bank straight away. The moment you realize, ring them on the number on the back of your card, and then follow it up in writing so there is a dated record. That is the single action that starts the clock in your favor. Report the crime as well, to Action Fraud if you are in England, Wales or Northern Ireland, or to Police Scotland on the non-emergency line, because that record supports your claim. Keep everything while you are at it, the texts, the emails, a note of the number that called and the time it rang, even the name the caller gave. None of it needs to be tidy. It only needs to exist because a dated, awkward, honest record beats a perfect memory every time. And it is the difference between the bank taking your word and asking for proof you no longer have. If the bank drags its feet or says no, do not accept it as the last word. Take it to the financial ombudsman, free of charge. And if the forms and the phone calls feel like too much on top of the shock, you do not do it alone. Citizens' Advice will help you for nothing, and Age UK's advice line knows these cases well and will stand beside you through them. Say it with me one more time, because Pauline needed to hear it 3 times before she believed it. Report it straight away, put it in writing, and never let shame make the fraudster a gift of your silence. Pauline got her money back. Every penny of the nearly 20,000 once she stopped apologizing and started asking. And once someone pointed out that a recently widowed woman kept on the phone for 40 minutes was the very definition of a customer the rules protect most fiercely. She is not embarrassed anymore, she is furious, which is the correct and healthy direction for the feeling to travel. And she now tells the story at her whist club like a woman handing out life jackets. Be Pauline after the phone call, not during it. If you know someone who has lost money this way and gone quiet about it, someone who flinches when the subject comes up, send them this video without a lecture attached. It might be the thing that gets them their savings back, and it will certainly tell them the loss was never their shame to carry. Subscribe if you would like the plain words version of your rights before you ever need them. And tell me below, as honestly as you can bear, has one of these calls ever reached your phone, and what did you do? Your stories are what these videos are made of. Trust your gut, check before you send, and never be ashamed to ask for what you are owed. I will see you in the next one.